Today, you will meet a very creative and versatile percussion player. One who had the courage to craft his own style out of the many traditions he learned, including Egypt, Europe, India, Turkey, and Africa. He is a Grammy nominee and a world-renowned handpan player, and he is based in Berlin, Germany. Welcome, David Kuckhermann.
Thank you, Reinhard. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to The Power of Rhythm, a podcast with your host, Reinhard Flatischler, around the one thing that connects us all. Rhythm.
Yes, so I have some questions for you. Did you grow up in Germany or in Europe?
Yeah, I grew up in Germany, in the Northwest.
So that's, a very similar story to me. I grew up here too. So how did you get interested in percussion? Because that's, not around everywhere here. So what was your path?
I started playing piano when I was a kid. The only other musician in my family was my grandmother, who was an amazing pianist and church organ player. And so it was kind of a family thing. She suggested that I start playing piano, but I didn't really get into it at the time. And then later I stopped playing after like 2 years. And then in my teenage years, I started playing bass in gothic and death metal bands. That was my scene at the time. And then I decided I want to be a musician, but I didn't really know which instrument I should choose, because on piano I wasn't good enough, and I liked the bass, but not as much that I wanted to dedicate my life to it, to playing a death metal bass. So when I turned 18, my father, as a birthday present, he gave me a weekend in Paris, and we went to the flea market there. And we had some money left over, and we bought 2 djembes. And he was in a kind of weekly drum circle at the time, and he showed me a rhythm, and I really loved it. So I decided to look for a teacher when I come back to my hometown, and that's what I did. And then I started playing conga drums, and then I wanted to do that, but then I ran into some issues. I got the white finger syndrome. So my hands would get really cold while I play. And I didn't really know how to solve that. And then actually I saw a concert of your ensemble Megadrums. That was, I think, in Stuttgart must have been around 2000, somewhere around that time. And I saw Zakir and Glenn on stage, and it just blew me away. So then, from then on, I discovered the world of finger drumming, and first studied North Indian tabla, and then later switched my focus to frame drumming and Iranian percussion.
Mm-hmm. That was very curious, because I was going through the list of your teachers, and what stood out for me was Ustad Fayaz Khan, because there's a Ustad Fayaz Khan who is a great vocalist, but he died in 1950. I say, how did you learn with him? Then I found out it's a tabla player. So how did you meet those people? Like, okay, Glenn, you told us, but Rami Sultan and Fayaz Khan and Samani, where did you meet them? How did you come to them and learn with them?
Well, I went to the World Music Conservatory in Rotterdam, and I started studying music, and my main subject was North Indian tabla. So that's where I met Ustad Fayaz Khan. Mm-hmm. And all the others, I simply contacted them. I looked when I was interested in an instrument, I just looked for teachers online. I really liked those early days. I was very excited about the internet and all the new possibilities. And when I found a teacher that I really liked, I would simply write them an email. And that's how I got in touch with all of these guys, basically.
So what I personally like a lot on your music, your approach, is that you had the courage to create your own style, and not just playing patterns that you learned somewhere, And great music grew out of this. I want to just, give our listeners a taste of your music. And the tune is called The Beginning. What beginning is that?
Well, it's the first track of my CD with Lisa Gerard. So it's the beginning of that album, for one. And then, I like about music that it's so abstract. So for me, it has a certain feeling, the piece. It's the beginning of something, but I can't even define it really concretely. So for everyone, maybe it can relate to some different kind of beginning.
Okay, certainly the beginning of, we are listening to your music right now. beginning, music from David Kuckhermann, and we can hear already the handpan sound in it, and I would love to hear from you a little bit of the history of, it all started, I think, with the hang from pan art, and then it's the abundance of handpans that arose, maybe the instrument history and your history with the instrument.
So the hang was invented by Felix Rohner and Sabina Scherer in the year 2000 in Switzerland. And the origin, before that they built steel drums. And from that came the hang. And the hang, for a few years, it kind of flew under the radar. It was available in music stores, but it wasn't actually that popular. And it was really easy to find if you wanted to get one. And then with the rise of YouTube and some people basking, playing on the street, at some point the popularity really took off very, very quickly. And it was not so easy to actually find an instrument. And then other people started making them. The first handpan maker, I think, was Kyle Cox in the States, who built the Halo. And for a few years, there were only a handful. And at some point, it just kind of really crossed a certain threshold and it took off. And now there are like hundreds of handpan makers all over the world who build wonderful instruments. And I saw the hang first, I think, in Rotterdam during my study years, during a guest performance of a percussionist who played a solo concert. And I didn't really like the instrument at the point, to be honest. It sounded kind of boring and like a little bit samey, and I didn't feel drawn to it. That happened many, many years later when I was touring in Chile with an ensemble called Mishra. And some of the other guys, they had two hangs, and they were part of the repertoire of instruments, and I also played on them during the tour. And that's where I realized, wow, this is actually like a serious musical instrument if you spend the time. And from there, at some point, I think it was 2011, I really fell in love with it, and I just didn't want to stop practicing and playing anymore. And also it opened the door for composing, and that was something I was missing before in my musical life. Of course, I was playing percussion solos and composing percussion solos, which is really wonderful thing in itself, but it's still something different. I was kind of missing these qualities of melody and harmony, and the handpans are such a wonderful way to integrate these into your repertoire if you come from any kind of percussive background.
Yeah, there are actually two sitting right behind you for our listeners when they see you. Yeah, what type of handpans or hang are you playing? Have you a certain brand, or are you playing everything? Or
I play a few different ones. I have one original hang, and then I have a few instruments from a Russian maker that were built around 2012, like the one sitting there. And I use that one when I record for my courses, because it's kind of a very, very beautiful instrument, but it has a basic layout. And nowadays when I compose, then I like to play kind of instruments with extended range. I have some beautiful Ishama pantams from Jonathan Bar. He's an Israeli maker, and those instruments are just fantastic. And there are other wonderful makers as well who keep pushing the boundaries of how many notes you can put on the instrument, exploring different sounds. And it's a really wonderful time now for that.
Actually, you composed a handpan piece called Old Sea. What's the Old Sea?
Okay, so my then girlfriend, now wife, Milena, spent half a year in South America. And while she was there, I organized two handpans for us from Jonathan. They were like matching instruments with matching scales. And when I picked her up, we took 4 weeks of traveling around in South America. That was, I think, 3 4 years ago. And there was a hostel where we stayed, and the hostel was called the Old Sea. The Spanish equivalent. I don't remember what the phrase was right now. But the translation was the Old Sea. And we had such a wonderful time at this hostel and worked on this composition there. And we also recorded it on the beach right next to this hostel. We have a video of it. And that's where the name came from, the Old Sea.
Beautiful. So let's listen to the Old Sea. Old Sea from David Kuckhermann. Now we come to some hardcore questions. For example, if you meet someone who is not playing music, not actively playing music, you want to explain to him What is the feeling of being in the groove? What would you say?
Wow, the feeling of being in the groove.
Yes.
I have to think about that for a second.
Yeah, that's cool, of course.
I think it's the place. Well, this question can be interpreted in so many different ways. Like if I play music and I play with others, then I would describe that feeling as the space where it feels most restful in relation to your surrounding, where you don't feel rushed, where you don't feel uncomfortable, where you just feel connected to everybody else.
That's a very good one. You have another one too?
Well, I mean,
because it's really interesting. You're just bringing it out now. This is wonderful. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you could also think about it as being in groove with life or with yourself, or being in the flow of creating or of playing music. I guess for me, it feels similar to being in the flow, like to be at a state of being content and maybe happy and at peace with your surroundings and enjoying whatever you're doing and focusing on that.
So, from what you say, it's a quite intense, wonderful state. What has percussion, or your engagement with percussion, done for your personal life?
I mean, I would not be who I am if not for percussion. I would probably not be a musician. Maybe I would be, but I would have a completely different life. I mean, it has enriched my life in so many countless ways. I don't even know where to start. Like I look forward to work every day when I wake up. It's such a wonderful thing for me, like being able to make a living through this. Well, you can call it work. You can also, I don't know, it doesn't even feel like work. It's just what I love to do also. So it's just given me this life, I would say.
Well, actually, very nice answers, because they're coming right out of the moment. You didn't know that I will ask you that. So, now, another one that's really, when I listen to what's out from your music, I came across one thing that you are fluently playing a 9-beat. Now, you know that you might have heard TaKeTiNa that I have created. So for TaKeTiNa, it's very easy. When I heard it, it's taki, taki, gamala, taki. But how did you, learn to fluently play in odd rhythms like 9-beat cycles, 11-beat cycles, or whatever? What was your way?
That was a long process, I'd say. Like I remember when I started studying, as for most people, it was a very strange and foreign world for me, the world of odd meters. A little bit uncomfortable, I'd say. And then through studying Indian music and Arabic music, Middle Eastern Arabic music, Turkish music, I just started playing them, and over the years you get more comfortable with them, I think. That is the kind of part that happens just through over time and through playing. And then I took lessons with Glenn Velez. And you probably know his hand dance method as well, which is, I think, has quite a lot of parallels to the TaKeTiNa work. Mm-hmm. So he taught me that method, and I worked a lot with that. And I still work a lot with that with all of my students nowadays. I mm-hmm. think it's such an amazing tool to develop a sense of rhythm and comfort in unusual meters.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's listen to one of these things you put out there. And it's taki, taki, gamala, taki. It's on the cajon, and you're playing 2 cajons. It's really nice. 9-beat groove, David Kuckhermann. I really love it because when I started percussion, anything beyond 6/8 or 4 was kind of non-existent, unless it was in a traditional Indian system also. But more and more creative percussion players bring this abundance back, that has gone away.
Awesome! Yeah, I didn't even remember that one. That's you must have found it on my older YouTube videos. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going through it and studying a little bit, and it really, it hit me because it's really fluent. It's clearly not someone who's counting in the background, and that's the beauty. So, how are you living through the crazy times we are in right now?
Well, all our lives change. No, I mean. I had like 2 long tours scheduled with Dead Can Dance, and they were both canceled, and all other concerts and workshops as well. I'm very lucky that I have my online school, and that's been supporting us throughout these strange times. So on that front, I'm just so grateful that I'm in a good spot, and I don't struggle like many other musicians just paying my rent or supporting my family. So I'd say it's been relatively good for me and for us. I have a little daughter, and of course, taking care of her becomes a different challenge when the guitars like open and close every week. Kind of, you never know how it goes. So you have a little bit less time at hand, and you spend more time with the family. But altogether, of course, I miss some things, but I don't mind being by myself, working in the studio. I kind of always enjoy that a lot, and I try to focus on that in these times and to use them creatively. So I'd say we cope well. It doesn't feel like suffering. It's just a different kind of time.
If you had enough money to create whatever event you would like to, I mean musical event or something like with groups or with gatherings, what would it be?
I think it's an interesting question. I think it wouldn't be about a gathering or like a moment. It would be about creating a space for creating and learning music. That's kind of an open space for anybody who wants to join in like the spirit of dedicating a chapter of your life to music, and then teaching, learning, creating music, composing in this kind of environment, and opening it up for students and fellow travelers, so to speak. I think that would be a nice thing to realize.
That's great. David, I thank you very much for your time. I thank you very much for your music that you allowed us to listen to. Now, where can our listeners find you on the web?
You can go to handpandojo.com or to worldpercussion.net. Or you can just put my name into YouTube or Google or whichever search engine of your choice, and you will find all the things I do. Maybe my YouTube channel is a good place to start.
Thank you so much. It was really nice meeting you finally, talk to you. And also to our listeners, please check David out. He has a lot to offer in various realms, in hand drums, and cajon, and of course all the beautiful hand pans. If you like our podcast, go to powerofrhythm.com/podcast, leave a comment if you like, and let me know whom you want to have on our show. For today, I wish you a great time, and don't forget, keep on grooving.